Corina Pataki is the author of 4 books and a spiritual minister. Her books deal with religion, the role of Yahweh, spiritual enlightenment, and today she's going to be connecting all of that to the extraterrestrial phenomenon. And we're going to find out the true role extraterrestrials have played in Christianity, Judaism, and world religion.
You're listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
Well, welcome, Corina, to Exopolitics Today.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Dr. Salla, for having me on again with you. What a privilege and an honor to be here. Thank you.
Well, the honor's mine to have someone who has been so prolific with authorship. I mean, you've written 4 books as well as brought up a family. So that's quite a lot. So you obviously have been very deeply inspired to explore these issues. So, yeah, I mean, how did you, I mean, we know your story about how you came from Romania and the background to that. But at some point, you got very involved in this in these spiritual issues. So, what was the catalyst for that?
Yeah, a wonderful question. The catalyst for me, I guess it's always been there because I've always had a desire to speak and teach and learn. First of all, me learn and then teach others on identity, on the reality of who we are. And growing up in church, I've realized more, becoming a minister in 2007, launching my own Christian ministry and going around the world and teaching and being blessed to be on platforms. I've realized that we were missing a lot. There was a lot of things that were missing that we were not being told regarding who we truly are, regarding the abilities that divine creator put in us, the abilities that Yeshua showed us. I mean, that was one of the biggest reasons really that he came on the earth to show us. So I'm a very passionate and fiery person when it comes to walking and teaching people truth, me myself learning the truth and then teaching others. So it began with a desire of, I want people to know the truth of who they truly are. And it's a growing process that we all mature from one level to the other level to another level, just like we do as children. We go from babies, newborn toddlers, and so on and so forth. The same with spirituality. But unfortunately for the Christian arena that I grew up in, and unfortunately the Christian arena at large, there is so much control over our ability to mature, to grow, to become who we are supposed to become, because everything is controlled. It's controlled through the narrative of the Bible. It's controlled through the preachers, the leaders. It's just controlled and manipulated. So my desire was always, let's remember who we are, because we are so much greater than what we've been told, even from the pulpits, and especially from the pulpits.
Well, I know, there are many that are called to Christian ministry, and they go through theological training and they get degrees, certificates, and they follow a kind of conventional path. And there are those that are just inspired. I mean, they're guided by spirit, and
Yes.
they are just totally in alignment with the spirit. And so it sounds as though you followed that latter path. So, I mean, when did you realize that you were going to become a kind of Christian minister?
Yeah, that's such a good point, Dr. Salla, that you're bringing, and it's so true. When we go to Christian seminaries or Christian schools or Bible schools, and not that I have anything against that, we depend on, yet again, a leader sitting at the top of the class and telling you what you should or shouldn't believe, or them giving you their regurgitated opinion. I'm sorry, opinions that are even written down in books. And that's great. I'm not dogging that at all. But for me, it has been a desire of, I want to learn from experience. There is one thing to learn from books and head knowledge, which is great, don't get me wrong. But the problem is when we stop at that and we use that as a badge to be able to tell people what they can and cannot do, that is based on men. My desire has always been, no, if the kingdom of God is within us, is what Yeshua said, infinity itself, because divine creator is infinity. He's in him, he, she, it is infinite. So if that's truly inside of us, then we should be able to access that and not be limited to what we're learning in a school. Yes, I've done different biblical schools, but I wanted more. I wanted so much more for that. So that has always been my desire. And that's when, since literally, Dr. Sala, I have had such experiences in the supernatural realm since I was a child. And I knew that it's more than what I was hearing from the churches. Even as a child, I would take it to my father. I would ask my dad different things, and he didn't have answers for that because the church would not allow you to have the answers to that. So in that sense, I have always been more of a rebel, if you will, when it comes to my desire to experience what Yeshua was talking about.
Well, I know that you've written 4 books, and one of the books has, several of the books are really intriguing. I'm going to be talking today about 2 of them, but the one that really got my attention first was Unveiling the Mysteries of the Celestial and Engaging the Blueprint of God. So, yeah, tell us, why did you write that book? What was it that inspired you to come up with that title and the topic?
We all were born, if I can say, came here into this realm, into this reality with a blueprint. And it's not a blueprint that was dictated by men. It's not a blueprint that is dictated by the circumstances of what we are born in. It's a blueprint that is dictated and we agreed with when we were in the heart. I want to say the heart, the realm, the most sacred realm in all of creation and infinity, which is the realm of divine creator. So we are fractals of divine creator. And as being fractals, therefore, we carry the DNA of that incredible power. And inside that DNA, we all are born with specific blueprints. However, the church, again, unfortunately, has really put a cap on that, if you will, because they do not want to allow, because we know who's in control of it, for us to tap into the fullness of that. So what I was teaching people is that there is a blueprint. We all have a blueprint. We just need to remember who we are, wake up out of our spiritual amnesia, check out that blueprint, see that blueprint, and then walk that blueprint out. And it's not what your circumstances are. It's not what you were told that you are. It's not what Tom, Dick, and Harry tells you that you are. It's what divine creator said that you are, because you are fractals of divine creator. And you were born with a purpose and a reason to reflect the fractals of divinity itself in every realm that you are in. And that is how we can change our current circumstances and the reality that we live in. We can change it by what we engage, when we engage our original true blueprint.
Well, that's fascinating. So this original blueprint, is that something that is stored within one's DNA at birth, or is it something that is part of one's soul? What one comes into
Yeah.
life with? And you talk about the destiny scrolls. So is that what the
Yes.
blueprint is?
Yes. So the blueprint is. So let me answer that. It's what is in our soul and our spirit that is transferred into our body in whatever realm we are being born into, on earth, on other planets, and other realms and other dimensions. So it's the blueprint of what we agreed to be part of, that is part of our soul, our spirit, and then imprinted or trickles down in our DNA. So and I'm sorry, what was the other part of the question?
Was that also the same as the destiny
Yes.
scrolls? What
Yes.
are they?
So the blueprint is, if you will, like I'm just going to give an example. For instance, I am building a hospital. So you have a blueprint for the hospital. Now, the scrolls of destiny, there's many of destiny, is what is this hospital going to be? For instance, it's going to be a children's hospital. This is what we're going to have. We're going to have a dentist. We're going to have a psychologist. We're going to have a internal medicine doctor. So it's the mandates of that particular building that is encapsulated in the whole blueprint, if you will. So a blueprint is like a book, another example, and each page is a scroll of destiny or a mandate that is encapsulated in a blueprint. So in itself, it's infinite. It never ends. Just because a person goes beyond the realm, I had a dear friend that just passed away today. Just because a person goes beyond this veil, the blueprint doesn't stop, because there's so many scrolls of destiny that are encapsulated in that beautiful, magnificent blueprint that we can, if we choose to walk it out, fulfill them.
So is the blueprint like following one's calling? Because I mean, I know that was one thing that I always struggled with early in life, to find, what is my true calling? And I went through different things. I was a mathematics teacher. I became a university professor in peace and conflict resolution. And I was good at those things, but it was only in 2001 where I truly felt that, this calling kicked in when I found out about the whole extraterrestrial presence and that was being covered up. It was like something within me just opened up, like the light switched on. So is that where the blueprint is activated, when you find your true calling in life?
Yes, and then more. So for instance, I'll give you an example, and I'm going to use President Trump for an example. This man so knows his blueprint, his calling, that no matter what is thrown at him, you agree with it or you don't, that's not the point here. He stands his ground firmly because he knows that he knows that he knows what his blueprint is. Therefore, he knows that he knows who he is, and everything that's in between, that is his callings or his mandates or his scrolls of destiny. So yes, most definitely, it can be your calling. Absolutely. So in other words, when you know your blueprint, nothing can shake you, because you know what you are sent here to do. You know the different destiny scrolls are in within that blueprint, and you're gonna let nothing shake you out of that. That's why it's so important for us to know our blueprint, remember who we are, and start engaging to see our blueprint and start walking that out. Because if we know our blueprint, the present circumstances, no matter how dangerous and scary they are, they cannot touch us. If we know who we are and what our call is or blueprint is, nothing can shake us out of that. It's a knowing and choosing to walk in that knowing.
So that's kind of like, you talked about the blueprint is like a fractal of God or of the universe. So, when you're following your blueprint, you are, in a sense, following that divine will. I mean, you're in alignment with, and all the spiritual traditions talk about the power that lies within one that follows that, the divine will.
Yes, Dr. Stella, absolutely. We are then becoming reflections of the fractals of divinity itself. And I don't even like to call him God, because God is a title that shows superiority and inferiority. What if there's any title that I can put, Father, it's infinity, because there's no beginning, there's no end. And the essence of this, if infinity, Father, divine creator, is love. So when we walk in that, and we in that place, when we walk in that and we manifest that, we become literal reflections of that infinity and the power that's within that infinity. That's why I try to teach people to remember that everything they need is within. So in a sense, we have to implode to go deep inside of us to a point of singularity where we achieve the level of who we were, which is who we are, and bring that out. Okay, so reflect that out into our reality, and our reality will then take on the image of the reflection that we are reflecting from within. So sometimes, we deal with circumstances and we want to fix them by going outside and taking care of this and taking care of this, and we run like a doggy after its tail. No, the truth is that everything we need, infinity itself, the fractals of divine creator, is in. Go in, tap that point of singularity, because there's many points of singularity in us, and reflect that out. And everything is going to change according to what you are reflecting from within. So, yes.
So let's talk a little bit about Abraham, because he's a critical figure in the foundation not only of Judaism but also of Christianity and of Islam. So
Mhm.
Abraham, I mean, he lives in the Sumerian city, or at that time I think it was an Akkadian city of Ur, but Ur
Yes.
itself was a Sumerian city. And he was told, I mean, someone gave him a command, some spiritual entity gave him the command to leave Ur, to travel to the Palestine, to that area of Palestine. So who was it? And I know you mentioned Elyon. So, who was it that gave Abraham that command to leave Ur and to then go to Palestine, and of course establish the very first Hebrew tribe, I guess?
Yeah, well, Abraham is a very interesting character. I know from the studies that I have done that the one that he heard at the majority of his life, till I would say more towards the end of his life, was none other but Yahweh. And the reason I say that is because, I'm going to try to bring it very simple. And I always say this: you will recognize a tree by its fruit. This is how we discern what voice was speaking to Abraham. We know very, very clear, or for those of you that don't know, I'm going to just share with you. When Yeshua talked about his father, he was talking about a completely different entity, if you will, because one is full of love and hope and comes to give hope and life. And the other one, like Yahweh, was actually, so several problems here, asking Abraham to take his promised child, do a human sacrifice to test him. So this is the problem. This is a few problems here. So this entity, Yahweh, was not omniscient, because omniscient basically is everything. So if you have to test a human to know if they truly believe in you or not, then there's a problem there. Then you are not omniscient at all. Number one. Number two is requiring human sacrifice. That's a huge problem. And number three, I don't know if your viewers know this, but while Abraham was up there trying to, being willing to sacrifice his son, it says that a spirit went to Sarah and actually told Sarah, by the way, Abraham is up sacrificing Isaac, and she died literally of a broken heart. That entity right there that was in charge, that was speaking to Abraham, was not the Father that Yeshua was talking about, is not divine creator, who is love. The essence of divine creator is love. This was an evil and is an evil entity masquerading as God and masquerading as a father, when he is a counterfeit God and a counterfeit father. So yeah, that's who Abraham was talking to. And it's quite sad when you realize that, when you have grown up in church and you were taught something completely different.
Well, okay, that's going to be a shock for a lot of people to kind of like realize that. But just to bring a little bit of clarity to all of that. So Abraham was commanded by Yahweh to leave Ur, to head for Palestine, and then at some point you have this incident with his son Isaac, where he's commanded to sacrifice Isaac, and so was Yahweh also the same one that told Abraham, "Oh look, don't sacrifice Isaac. I've changed my mind. You can just sacrifice a sheep or a goat, and that'll be enough."
I believe that it was, because if it was the Father that Jesus was talking about, that Father is all powerful. It would not have allowed Abraham to even listen to this Yahweh, to even be brought to that position where Abraham would attempt to sacrifice his son. This is what we have to keep in mind. Again, You look at the fruit of the tree so you can tell what kind of tree it is. So this is something that I know it's very shocking for, especially for Christians. There is no way in any part of the story the father that Yeshua was talking about was involved in. He would have never let this happen. This is all Yahweh's doing and his other minions that were involved in this. Because for Isaac, Dr. Salah, for Isaac not to react to his father's attempt, like, what, father, we have the wood, we have the fire, where's the sacrifice? And then Isaac realized it. And for him not to say, have you lost your mind? Our God doesn't require human sacrifices. He doesn't ask for that. But the fact that Isaac never questioned his father shows me that they were used to human sacrifices that were required or accepted by Yahweh. Oh, and there's proof.
Well, that's something that's very important to kind of like follow up on, is that Yahweh was someone that was comfortable with human sacrifice. So at this point, we need to know, was Yahweh an extraterrestrial? And in particular, was he a reptilian? Because
Oh, yeah.
reptilians are the ones that do require human sacrifice.
Oh, absolutely. And where you see that he was a reptilian, more clear. And again, it's kind of hidden. When you study the Bible, you have to really study. You cannot just read superficially, because the Hebraic language or the Middle Eastern languages are multidimensional languages. They are not a linear language. They are not like the Western type of languages. The Western languages are very linear. The Eastern languages they're multi-dimensional languages that pull you in. So the more you read, the more it uncovers itself. It opens itself up deep and wide and high. So therefore, when you go deeper, it will open up more and you get more understanding, but you have to study it. So from this perspective, we see very, 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 very clearly that there's something that Yeshua said when he was talking to the Pharisees and Caiaphas, the high priest. He looked at them and he said to them, you are nothing but a brood of vipers, reptiles. He was speaking to their DNA. He said, you know how to get into the kingdom realms. You won't go there yourself, and you will not let anybody else enter, which means they have put themselves as gatekeepers, standing in our way, standing in anybody's way that wants to ascend, that wants to go in, that wants to awaken out of their spiritual amnesia, who they are. They're going to stand in our way and say no. So we have to remember that these priests were the priests of Yahweh. And we have to also remember that in John 8, Jesus, before they crucified him, looked directly at them and he said, your father is not my father. Because if your father was my father, you would recognize me. Your father is Satan, the devil. He's been a liar and a murderer of humanity from the beginning. So therefore, absolutely, Yeshua was speaking to their reptilian DNA, calling Yahweh Satan, which we know it's a title. It literally means the opposer, the accuser. And throughout the Old Testament, all we see is him accusing, killing, bloodshed, cannibalism, sex trafficking, raping, plumaging. This is who he is. So absolutely, from the studies that I've done, it's very, very, very clear distinction. It's very, very clear. The parallels, between Yahweh and Enlil, very clear.
Okay, so Enlil, he is the sky god of the Sumerians, and we know from multiple Sumerian texts that Enlil was the commander of the Anunnaki space fleet. So he was their commander, and he was responsible for the Great Flood, this evil to kind of wipe out the human experiment that was really kind of nurtured by his half brother Enki.
Yeah.
So and we know from a number of sources that Enlil was a human reptilian hybrid. So that whole kind of hybrid, so that whole reptilian human sacrifice, that would be in line with him being a kind of like a reptilian human hybrid. So So you're pretty convinced that Yahweh of the Hebrew Bible is the same Enlil of the Sumerian texts.
Absolutely. Again, for me, you look at the fruit, that tells you what type of tree it is. And when I look at the fruit, and listen, I have done in-depth studies of the scriptures, taking them from as far back as I can go to the original ancient Hebrew, Aramaic, as much as I can from the Greek. And when you look at all the horrific atrocities that were done, and you look at what Enlil was accused of, it's like putting them, you know, one is the other. And the Antichrist and the red dragon as well, the ones that Christians have been afraid of, that oh, we don't want to get the mark of the beast, when in actuality Yahweh has a mark exactly on the forehead and the hand. So there's, yeah, absolutely, it's definitely not, he was definitely a reptilian, that came from another realm, not from the earth, that has been masquerading as the Christian God.
Okay, that's a very important kind of like idea there, and so I just wanted to flesh that out a little bit. We know from Sumerian records there was this kind of conflict or rivalry between Enlil, the kind of sky god, the commander of the Anunnaki space fleets, and his brother Enki, who was like a geneticist and like an alchemist, and he was the one that kind of like was really into DNA and bringing out that kind of like intrinsic qualities that are carried within one. So Enki is described as the good brother, as the positive. So in when you have the Abraham leaving and carrying with him the Sumerian cultures and kind of like using that as a foundation for starting up modern the Hebrew faith as it began. What was Enki? I mean, was Enki pretty much like the serpent in the garden? Was that the way it was? Yahweh is depicted as this kind of all powerful God, and Enki is the serpent in the garden, and the truth was the reverse. I mean, you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I'm still honestly, I'm still diving into that, so I don't have the full picture of that. But from what I've studied so far, that is the case. But this is what happens, Dr. Sala. What the evil ones do is they take the truth and they invert it, and they call good bad and bad good. So I can see that there's definitely been that happening in Genesis chapter 1 and chapter 2, because both chapters are different. You talk about two different creations. And from what I have seen, none of these stories have to do with a divine creator. And it was quite shocking when I realized this. And we have to understand, throughout the Bible, Yahweh is called the prince or the king of this earth. And at one point Jesus said, the prince of this world is coming, but he has nothing in me. Jesus was speaking of that reptilian DNA, saying that though Yahweh, he was speaking, Dr. Salah, to that reptilian DNA, because we see what he said to the Pharisees and Sadducees. He said, he has nothing in me, meaning his DNA. Yeshua was saying, my DNA is pure, so there's nothing that he can do, because I am not a reflection of that. And this is what we have to remember. We cannot give consent to something that does not look like divine creator. What does divine infinity creator look like? Simple: love. If it's not love, it does not come from him. If it quacks like a duck, it sounds like a duck, it's a duck. Don't call it a butterfly. So yeah, I'm still diving in that, but for sure there's something that's going on in that garden that has been inverted, and right called wrong and wrong called right. Even the fact that they were not allowed, Adam and Eve, to eat out of the tree of the knowledge, I mean, that's just insane. And that's interesting, because there's a scripture in the New Testament that says, my children, creation perishes due to lack of knowledge. So here is in Genesis this entity that was punishing Adam and Eve for eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Yeah, I think there's a really good book, insightful book, I think, that kind of casts a lot of light on this uh, uh, struggle between Enlil and Enki, and that is by an author, Matthew LaCroix. It's called The
Mm,
Stages of Time.
okay.
And he talks about that inversion where the negative was portrayed as positive and the positive as negative. And he speaks about this struggle between Enlil, whose symbol was the eagle, the sky god, versus Enki, whose symbol was the serpent. And the serpent traditionally has represented wisdom. It's and in our in kind of like modern Christianity, it's been twisted. So rather than the serpent representing wisdom, it represents deceit. And so that's the trick, because like that wisdom comes from this kind of like kundalini activation and the caduceus and all of that, and traditional Christians see all of that as kind of magic or sorcery, and they keep away from it. But in fact, that's the road to enlightenment, having that inner wisdom triggered.
Yeah, that's so good. And as you're talking, I'm just going back in my mind at that so many things that uh, through the programming of Christianity based on manipulation and control through fear, like for instance, Christians are having a hard time understanding star seeds. And when in actuality, I mean, I taught on the book of Enoch. In our academy, I did an in-depth class on Enoch, broke down the books of Enoch. And Enoch, Dr. Sala, talks about the star seeds. He clearly talks about them. He says that there's three races that he deals with: the chosen, the just, and the ancient or the sacred ones. And he clearly says that they were entreating for humanity. And at one point, they left their heavens above and came down and mingled, and their offsprings now are here to bring forth the original desire of divine creator for humanity. It's right there in our faces. So there's so many things that Christians have thrown to the devil and demonic, including these star seeds, because all we've been taught is angels and demons. That's it. Anything else that does not fit in that category. And I'll tell you why, Dr. Sala. It's because of this scripture that was quoted over and over and again, and we misunderstood it, that says that we were made in the image and likeness of God. So in our minds, I'm talking about in general as Christians, we think, oh, so that means God has a face, two eyeballs, a nose, a mouth, hair, two hands, 2 feet. So therefore, if you don't look like me, a human, because we're the image of God, then you must be a demon. So when we need to understand the image and likeness of divine creator is not this is an avatar. This is a vehicle by which we can engage in whatever realm we are living in. The image and likeness is the fractals, our spirit, our soul, the DNA strands that's inside of us that's mirroring divine creator, so that we can bring that divinity and change all this that's right now in chaos, because we are living in a realm that's full of chaos. How do we change that? Realizing who we are, realizing the power that's in us, and releasing that out. So, Dr. Sala, there's so much hidden in the scriptures, but because people are used to spoon feed me, I'm going to go to church, sit in my pulpit Sunday morning. I'm going to hear what the pastor says. And if what you say does not line up with that, then your teaching is demonic. When in actuality, we need to become students ourselves and study and devour and eat and take in and study and devour and eat, and then engage experiential. Nothing can trump the experiences that you have, coupled with the knowledge of what you went to dig inside. Not just feed me, because we're not babies. We should be maturing and awakening into who we are, so the Dr. Sala, we can start changing and becoming the humanity that we need to become, and this earth can become what it's supposed to become.
Now, earlier you mentioned that Jesus didn't believe, or Yeshua didn't believe, that Yahweh was the God that he worshipped, and that's consistent with the Gnostic Gospels.
Yes.
And the Gnostic Gospels, I mean, this is one of the things that I think modern Christians don't appreciate, is that there was actually quite a strong Christian community that called themselves Gnostic Christians, and that they believed exactly that Yahweh was not the same God that Jesus worshipped, that Jesus followed in the footsteps of a God of love, and that the God of wrath and violence and
Mm,
pillage that's depicted in the Old Testament is really like an even or evil God. And so that in the Gnostic Gospels, that's talked about as the demiurge. So and those Christians, the Gnostic Christians, were suppressed by Christians, especially during the Council of Nicaea, when they were driven. I mean, all the Gnostic churches were destroyed, the Gnostic texts were burned, and Gnostic followers were given a stark choice of abandoning their faith. So, were the Gnostic Christians right?
yes, absolutely, they were right. Absolutely, this is my thought. um, my truth. They were absolutely right, because there is no way. And Dr. Sala, what I have done, and I started on my sixth book called The Tales of the Two Fathers, where I will do nothing but bring scripture to prove scripture. There is no way that this Yahweh that has done, I'm just gonna I'm gonna just show you, lied, sent fire, killed, destroyed, called for cannibalism, brought famine, brought enemies on the people, so much so that his people had to then eat their newborn babies. Okay, uh, needing 32 young virgin girls, asking for sacrifices, accepting human sacrifices. This is a God that says an eye for an eye, when Yahweh all along. And listen, let me just share this little parallel. If when we read and we see that the Israelites, when they were in the desert, they were sick and tired of eating manna, and they went to Moses, complaining to Moses, and they said, we want some meat, please ask Yahweh to give us some meat. Moses went to Yahweh and asked for meat. So what did he do? He sent them fiery serpents to bite them and kill them. Now, they were also dying of thirst. So Moses went to God, to Yahweh, to this God, and he said, please give them water. He would not give them water. What does Moses do? He takes a stick and he hits a rock. Water comes out of the rock. Now listen, you go to the New Testament. What does Yeshua say? Don't you understand? If you ask anything of my Father, he's going to give to you. For if you ask him for a piece of piece of bread or water, he's not going to give you a stone. Remember, Moses had to hit on the stone or the rock. And it says, if you ask for a piece of meat, he's not going to give you a snake. There are so many times, Dr. Salah, that you see Yeshua literally taking what Yahweh said and saying the opposite of what his Father said. There's such clear distinctions. And for anybody that cannot see that, is because they're still, unfortunately, bound in fear. So yes, the Gnostics were absolutely correct. I mean, they saw Yeshua for who he was. And Yeshua, listen, Yeshua did not come so he can say, look at me, look who I am. There's no one like me. That is not why he came. He came to, number one, remind us who we are. That's why he said, everything that I have done. And listen, he walked on water, walked through walls, created substance out of nothing, raised the dead, healed the sick, and then so. He said, everything that I have done and more, you can do and you need to do. So this, and the Gnostics, this is what they believe. Yeshua said everything comes from the inside. The Gnostics, that is what they believe. Nothing comes from the outside. Everything comes from the inside. That then changes the outside. We don't want the outside affecting us. We want the inside affecting the outside. So I believe with every fiber of my being that the Gnostics were correct and they were on the path of truth. Absolutely.
Yes, I'm glad you said that. Now, one of the Gnostic texts that kind of like really struck me as very important was it's called the Secret Gospel of Thomas,
Yes.
and the Secret Gospel of Thomas says that
Mhm.
what Jesus taught was that one has to follow one's inner light. You look to the inner light, and that inner light, when the inner light of all the, or when the inner light of all the Christians and all followers connect, then that becomes the light of the universe. So one goes within to manifest this kind of blueprint of God, as you talked about in that first book. But in the Gospel of John, that was inverted to actually say one has to follow Jesus as the universal light. So you look outside, you look to, well, obviously Jesus isn't there, so you go for the next best thing, which is, the bishops and the Pope and the priests. So they become the living embodiments of Jesus and of the light. And of course, that's a control
Oh yeah,
system.
you're getting me started, Dr. Sala. That
Good.
that
Go for it.
is the problem right there. Because we were being told that there's nothing good inside of us, that we are born in sin, we're nothing but sinners saved by grace, we're nothing but this worm that is full of mud and poop. Oh my gosh, that is the problem right there. That's why I say, if we don't, and I say this so often, if we don't know who our true Father is, listen to me, please, then you will never know who you truly are. If you don't know who you truly are, you will continue to give consent to a man that has reptilian DNA in him or in her, that will always stand in your gate, be your gatekeeper, tell you what you can believe, tell you what you can do, tell you what you cannot do. And let me tell you something, what they will tell you has nothing to do with you walking in the fullness of the abilities of the fractal power of infinity that's within each and every single molecule, subatomic at a subatomic level of who you are. That's why our Earth, humanity looks in the chaos that it is, because for so many years we have given our power away, believing the lies of organized religion, when all along Yeshua said the power is within. He came to show you and me what we can do and who we are. That's why he is our brother. He's not our husband and he's not our shepherd. And Dr. Sala, even that was twisted, because so much, there are scriptures in the New Testament where it says that Yeshua is our shepherd, and that's a lie. Because let me say something. A shepherd, we've been afraid of the wolf in sheep's clothing. The shepherd is only there long enough to protect you until it's time for him to eat you and take advantage of every gift that you have. So it's high time, you guys, we examine the fruit so we can judge the tree correctly. And then take our power back. Remember who you are. If what you're hearing does not come out of love, out of hope, out of giving you hope and a future, which is what Yeshua said, that the Father says, I have come to give you a hope and a future, that you may live, that you may walk a fullness, a life full of blessings, because everything you need is inside. Dr. Sala, we have to be the change that we've been praying for and wanting to. It starts with us knowing who our Father is, knowing who we are. And we have beings, celestial beings, I call them cosmic family, that are here to help us. It's not just angels and demons. There are others. And Yeshua said it. He said it. He goes, there are others that are not of this. Of course, it was translated in flock. I don't believe that that's what he meant. There are others that the Father has that are not part of this. He was talking about the cosmic creation that divine source created. So you guys, we are not alone. We are not alone. There are extraterrestrial beings, whatever you want to call them, that are here for us, to help us, not to do it for us. It's to help us. When we awaken, we take our rightful position, walk our blueprint, and then they're ready to come alongside and help us kick butt and do what we must do, so this earth and humanity can become what it was always meant to become.
Well, this is where we get into, exactly who is Jesus. What is the correct description? I mean, you mentioned, he's not a shepherd. And of course, a lot of Christians believe Jesus is God. But I think what Jesus was ultimately, and that's exactly I think what you've been describing, Jesus was an alchemist. He was a mystery teacher. He was teaching people to get in touch
Oh,
with that inner light
yes.
and to express that so that they can be embodiments of this kind of living blueprint of the universal creator.
Yes, absolutely. He is an example, was and is an example for us, showing us, Dr. Sala, it says very clearly that death was the last enemy that was conquered and defeated. Well, this evil entity makes covenant with death. If you look, everything Yahweh did, and the New Testament calls the 10 Commandments a covenant of death. It's a covenant of condemnation and death. Everything that Jesus was about and is about is life. And again, he was an example. He is our big brother that came to show us the way, to kind of shake us and say, hey, wake up, awaken into who you truly are. Listen, look at me. You can do these things and greater, but it's all within you. It's all within us. It's all within all the power is within us. And when we awaken into that truth, nothing will be able to stop us.
Well, I want to shift now to your 2019 book, which again is intriguing, Unveiling the Trading Floors and Stepping into the Order of Melchizedek.
Oh boy.
So why did you write that? How did you come up with that title?
Oh, that's again from a lot of experiences and encounters that I've had in the spirit realm, and understanding that trading is, and I'm sorry, my green screen fell. I got so excited. The vibrations hit the green screen, so forgive that. So we have to understand that every kingdom or government has to do with trading. And trading basically means when you recognize a good, right, you trade it. So unfortunately, and it's a broad subject, so I'm going to try to make it really fast and hopefully understandable. My main point in writing this book is for us to understand. It was a preparation for getting to who our true father is and who he's not. We have to understand, when we give something of value that we have to somebody, there is an exchange that happens. And we as Christians have been giving for 2,000 years at least, and hundreds of years after that. We have given our life, our allegiance, our prayers, our faith, everything, our hope, with an entity that is trading with us death. So in other words, there are powers that be, like for instance with Yahweh, he cannot give anything else but death, destruction, doom, and gloom. And when we understand that we have to take our agreement back, and be careful who we agree with, because in this agreement, we will have a multiplication of the trade that we have been trading with. So in this case is Yahweh. That's why there's so much, for many, many, many years, Christians have gone through so much, we don't understand. Oh, why is this happening? Why is this for catastrophes when they happen in the world? I hear so many people saying a good God would never do that. Why is this happening? There was a trade with an evil entity that is connected with destruction, chaos, famine, fear, and hopelessness. So bottom line is, this book goes in depth. I go in details about what trading is, what trading floors are, how we can be careful who and what we trade with, because there's a multiplication. So we can choose to trade with life and love. In other words, Dr. Sala, when I engage in bashing somebody just because I don't agree with that, there's a trading floor that's being presented to me. That entity that is keened on carrying the energy of backstabbing, of killing with my words, I have just traded with that thing. And then I wonder why I see multiplication of those things happening in my life. So there is definitely a law of reciprocity, if you will, sowing and reaping. And this is what trading is. So I try to take the reader to understand how important it is, what trading floors are, and what we trade with. And then Melchizedek is just an incredible subject because he was the chief chancellor of the storehouses of the realms of infinity, and he was huge. He's huge with trading. So yeah, I know that's a deep subject, big subject.
So when we are talking about these trading floors, I mean, what comes to mind to me is these different realms or these different heavens. I mean, Enoch, he was taken to these different heavens. You know, the different realms of demons, and then the different realms of angels. Dante Alighieri was also taken to those different heavenly and demonic realms. So are we really talking about angelic realms? Are we talking about kind of like extraterrestrial planets or
Mhm.
ships? I mean,
All of that.
how does the extraterrestrial come into
Yes,
this?
all of that. We're talking about demonic realms. We're talking about, and each trading floor, okay? It's not this or that, it's this and this and this. So each, if we look at a trading floor, has a demon that's the overlord of it. So if we engage with that particular energy, then we are engaging with that particular demon, and we're going to reap a multiplication of what that thing offers. Now, let me tell you something, it doesn't offer anything good. Now, it also has to do with angelic beings when we trade. It also has to do with realms and with different worlds. Absolutely. So this trading, it's a huge, um, beautiful mystery that's being unveiled for us to understand why things happen in our lives that maybe we did not understand. So it's almost like taking, maturing from elementary school to college level, because you're coming into that understanding. Wait a minute, this is a sowing and a reaping. I'm reaping because I engage in this without knowing. Again, lack of knowledge is very, very, very bad. For us not to have lack of knowledge, the Bible says you perish. That's what Yeshua said. That's what Father said. My children, humanity perishes because of lack of knowledge, not because he wants it, but because we made choices. My choice, the choices that I make, is going to choose what I'm trading in and the multiplication of that trade that are going to come back into me. That's why, you guys, if you trade love, if you trade good words, if you trade kindness, you're going to get that back. As simple as that. And then, of course, we go to trading with angelic beings and realms and different heavens and different planets and star systems. Absolutely, Dr. Sala. It's all of that.
Well, I know you have descriptions in the book of Enoch that talks about Enoch being taken to the Ancient of Days,
Mhm.
surrounded by the cherubim and the seraphim and the archangels. So, are we talking about some kind of high dimensional
Yeah.
angelic place, or is this talking about some kind of galactic council that represents our galaxy or multiple galaxies?
That's what it is. It's definitely talking about our galactic, because we I don't even know how to put this in the right words. Um it's talking about our galactic. Now, of course, there are angelic beings, but it's not the angelic beings, because it's not their the angels come alongside to help us. It's our responsibility. So therefore, there are galactic assemblies, and like the Galactic Federations and different federations that are beings that Father created, that are not angels. They're beings. They're some are humans, some are not humans, like beautiful Elena describes so incredibly. So but I believe it's this and that. With Enoch, I believe is not definitely not just angels, is the other federations, if you will. Absolutely. That's what we have to learn, because Christianity, Dr. Sala, in our Western understanding, it's this or this. But with the Eastern mentality and this living languages, if you will, of the Eastern living languages, because they're they're multidimensionals, they're alive. They always draw us into the depths of the mysteries that they have encapsulated so beautifully, holding it for such a time as this, for us, for whosoever chooses to go and search it out, right? In there we see that it's not this or this, it's this and this and this and this and this and this, because it's a multi-dimensional unfolding of the mysteries of the truth that it holds. So yes.
Well, you talk about the Order of Melchizedek, and you've mentioned that. Now, I know I have read the second book of Enoch, also called the Slavonic Book of Enoch, and it talked about how Enoch was taken up into the heavens and then given 360 books that he wrote. He came back and he entrusted those books to his son Methuselah, and Methuselah's task, or his mission, was to preserve that teaching for humanity after the flood. So I assume that is where the Order of Melchizedek emerged, because Melchizedek is I think he's the grandson of Methuselah.
Yeah, and Melchizedek is a very interesting. Speaking of Enoch, so I was able to point out very clearly when I was teaching this in our academy, showing the students very clearly that Melchizedek was so different. Though he's a priest, right? According to the Bible, he's a priest. But it says so clear. Enoch says it so beautiful, where it says that Melchizedek has never served at the altar, meaning the altar of sacrifice. And he says that if this Levitical priesthood, the priests of Yahweh, if they did good, I'm paraphrasing a lot here, if they did good, and if the sacrifices that they did by serving at the altar of Yahweh brought forth life, then why was there a need for another order of priests to come, which was Melchizedek, that never served at the altar? Because and it says, Enoch says, Melchizedek is connected to perpetual life, as with the Levitical priesthood, the priests of Yahweh are connected. Yahweh, remember, the extraterrestrial, okay, the wannabe, the one that's all death and destruction, they are connected to perpetual death. So again, these truths are so clear in these writings that even Christians embrace. We just have to have eyes to see it. I want to say one more thing really fast, Dr. Sala, but I just read a scripture yesterday where it clearly says, and I believe it's in Ezekiel, where Yahweh says that this is what he says: I am going to blind my people as a punishment, that they have eyes that they cannot see, they have ears and they will not hear, and they have a heart and they don't understand. And then you go to the New Testament, and Yeshua says to the Pharisees, when he said, your father is a devil, he says, you have eyes and ears, but you cannot hear me. You cannot understand. So Yahweh has done a great job at blinding the people through the control and the programming of religion, based and rooted in fear.
Now, with this Order of Melchizedek, I know, the Book of Enoch, the Slavonic book, talks about Melchizedek and the secret books. Now, there's another book by J.J. Hurtak that came out in 1973, The Keys of Enoch. It sounds like you've read it. And he talks about the Order of Melchizedek as being like this kind of like galactic-wide brotherhood. So is this where the Order of Melchizedek is kind of like a galactic version of the Jedi Knights?
Yes, and let me say this. Absolutely. And I never read that book. This is just from my encounters and my studying. The Order of Melchizedek, Dr. Sala, also has to do with the pure bloodline. The bloodline of Yeshua. I'm talking about the physical lineage. Because in the scriptures, you have written down that Melchizedek came after Jesus, Yeshua. Now, after does not only mean, following, but also I'm creating this painting after that painting. So likeness. And it says that Melchizedek had no earthly genealogy. So in other words, there was no corruption in his DNA. There was no reptilian. There was no corruption in his DNA. And we know that Yeshua was of a pure bloodline, and we know that he has descendants. So Order of Melchizedek also has, I agree, brotherhood, and the ones that are also in that order, the bloodline of Yeshua, that are still here.
Okay, well, there's a question that's a kind of burning one for me, and that is, I know there's a lot of kind of like very popular evangelical Christian writers that touch on the ideas of extraterrestrial life and how the Bible talks about that, but they pretty much put out this idea that the giants that are described in the Bible are evil cannibals, and that Yahweh was justified in saying that they should be exterminated. So what do you make of that? I mean, were the giants in the Bible these evil cannibals as depicted, or were they something else? Were they a threat in some way?
Yeah, I mean, as with every race, you have good and evil. You have ones that choose to engage in horrible stuff, and you have ones that choose not to engage with it. I can tell you this much from the research that I've done from the Bible. Again, I'm very careful just to keep my research as much as possible to the Bible when I'm dealing with Christian audience, because they won't, if I just dive into the Sumerian text, they're like, well, that's not the Bible. So going back to the Bible, there are giants, Nephilim or Giborim, in Hebrew, that were bad, and there are those that were not. As a matter of fact, we look in the story of David. It says that David, before he stepped into his position of a king, he was hiding in the cave with 400 men of renown. Those men of renown are giants, the ones that had the DNA in there of a Gibor or Giborim. Because it says one put 300 down and one put 800 down. So there's definite clues that shows us they're not human. And David was hiding in the cave with these 400 men of renown. Now, when David became king in Israel, these and they were called outcasts, okay? They were called outcasts by the Jews. Now, interesting, Dr. Sala, that when David became king, these 400 men became judges in Israel. So to answer your question, no, I believe that there was a lot of them there. Were there some bad ones? Absolutely. But there was a lot of them that were good. But again, this inversion thing has happened to control the narrative and our understanding of the true story, our true history. Not religion, relationship, and our true history of who we are.
Well, that's very important. Thanks for sharing that, because I know there's quite a few people, and Elena Danan is one of those that has talked about these giants that are in these stasis chambers, and they're in various forms of activation and waking up. And my army source, JP, has actually seen one of these in Florida in an underground civilization there, and that giant is waking up. And so it's very important to understand, just as you said, that there were good ones and there were bad ones, but these ones, especially the ones that work with Enki or Prince Ea, were good. They were alchemists. They were doing very much the same thing that Jesus or Yeshua was doing, awakening humanity's potential, helping them follow that divine blueprint that you talked about in that earlier book. So I think that's very important. So how would you feel if one of these sleeping giants suddenly emerges and with all this wisdom? Would that be something you would feel comfortable and say, their wisdom is good?
Absolutely. And these giants, these good giants, are the protectors of certain lands. So they carry the wisdom and the knowledge of that land that was hidden and that was stolen. And I did encounter one of these giants from Romania in one of my memories and encounters. So there are definitely good giants. And Romania is called the land of the giants. So it's very interesting. And our folklore stories have a lot of giants in it. And we know that what is myth or story is actually more like the truth. So absolutely, Dr. Sala, there are so many, just like there are our cosmic family, there are evil ones, but there's more good than there are evil. The same with giants. There's some that were evil, but there's so many that are good, that are awakening that are here ready to engage with us and help us do what we need to do.
Do you want to tell us about that memory you have of that giant? You comfortable
Well,
doing that?
maybe on another one. I'm
Okay,
still
right.
getting, yeah, I'm putting
Okay,
pieces together quite,
sure.
yeah.
Okay. Well, my last question is on the Immaculate Conception and Jesus or
Mhm,
Yeshua.
mhm.
Now, I mean, the Immaculate Conception, we all know about that Mary conceived, supposedly without a father at the time. And so, that raises the question: was Jesus a product of some kind of genetic experiment by extraterrestrials that kind of like fertilized Mary in some way using their advanced technology, or was Jesus himself an extraterrestrial, like a walk-in, like a baby dropped off, and that was the Immaculate Conception? So, well, what do you say about that?
I don't, I would not poo-poo any of these two points that you made. Um, it could be both. It may not be this or that. Because it's interesting, because the Gnostics, the way they believed who Yeshua is, um, it's very interesting. I do believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that there was no, the Catholic Church and the Christendom at large say that the father turned his head because he saw the sin, and somehow Jesus took that sin on in his flesh and in his body. I do not believe that. So the Immaculate Conception absolutely happened. How it happened is very interesting, and I honestly don't have 100% of an answer on that, to where I can say this is how it is. To me, it could be either one of those things that you brought up. Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, well, definitely, I think that'll be a fascinating question
Yeah.
to get answered in the future.
Yes.
So, tell us about your next book.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Thank you so much. So it's called Into Hidden Dimensions and Beyond. And an invitation for the chosen. And when I got that name, I asked and I said, why? And you know, why is it an invitation for the chosen? And this is the thing, that because our choice chooses us. So if we choose to dive deeper, then we are going to partake of that trade of us choosing to step into those realms. So what this is about, I'm little Dr. Sala, this is where I begin to lay very hard the ground of who Yahweh is. Because into hidden dimensions basically means we're supposed to be going in realms of divine creator, into these realms that are sacred, where we can connect with the spirit realm. And but in order for us to do that, I talk a lot about a lot of things. I talk about love. What is love? I'm not talking about the mushy gushy feeling. I'm talking about the power. Love is the most powerful energy that there was, is, and will always be, that creates. I'm talking about the essence of divine creator, which is love. I'm talking about a realm and a dimension where we can engage that love that creates, and how to live in those realms, which are inside of us. This is where we go in through these portals from within us. And then I talk about who Father is. I begin to talk about what I've been sharing for the last year and a half. Because if we don't know who Father is, we will never be able to activate those realms of love. And again, I'm not talking about love, mushy gushy. I'm talking about the essence, the power. And then I talk about Tesla, a little bit of what Tesla said, and Einstein, and what Einstein said, what holds the universe together. I talk about dark matter, dark energy, how that relates to love, and beyond.
Right. So, I mean, that's going to come out end of July, early
Beginning
August.
of
Is that right?
August.
Okay, great. And I guess we'll give people your website
Thank
for
you.
them to pre-order or order that when it comes out. And I believe you're going to be one of the presenters in Orlando at the Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection Conference that runs from October 20 to 23. So, yeah, you want to tell us about what you're going to be covering at that event?
Oh my goodness, I am beyond just thrilled. I have no words to describe my excitement when I was so blessed and pleasantly surprised, shocked with this beautiful invitation from Danny. So I believe what I will be sharing is my story, part of my story, and then some other things that I'm going to be sharing when I do the interview with Danny. I know she always is looking for powerful new things that have not been shared before on any platform. So, but you guys stay tuned. I know that Danny's going to do an interview with me regarding what in depth of what I will be sharing. So, you guys just check that out.
Great. So where do people go, Corina, if they want to find out more about you, buy your books,
Yes.
enroll in your course? Because I think you teach
Yes, I
courses
do.
too.
We have an academy called Abracadabra Berit Shafer, which is I will create as I speak from the House of Hidden Books, which are mysteries which are inside of us. So they can connect with me on Facebook. They can connect on. We have our Quest for Truth on Facebook. Also, Quest for Truth Hidden Mysteries TV on YouTube. We are, I believe, on Rumble, on iTunes, on so many different platforms that I'm sorry I can't. We're new on them. My incredible producer Karen put us on everywhere. We are still working on our website, believe it or not. So just reach out to us at either by email or on Facebook at the Quest for Truth or Corina Pataki on Facebook. And our books are on Amazon. Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Corina, for being on Exopolitics Today and sharing your insights and experience.
Wow, Dr. Sala, thank you so much for having me on. It's just such an honor and a pleasure to share your incredible platform with you and the amazing speakers that you have on. An honor indeed. Thank you so much for having me.
You have been listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Sala. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Join or start a conversation in the comments. Take the time to explore the vast library of best-selling books, webinars, and podcasts by Dr. Sala. Visit exopoliticstoday.com.